50 Mastermind, which is amazing. I want to do a recap because we've heard from Gary quite a bit lately, and Gary is a visionary. Gary is not the execution guy. He's not the let me write out a systems manual. He can see things coming when others can't. And so hearing how he processes things is so interesting. Somebody asked me, no, change that. Somebody asked, not me, what's the difference between the thought process of a millionaire and a billionaire?
Zeros.
Zeros. So a millionaire sets goals and thinks about how far they can get in achieving those goals in 1 year or 3 years. A billionaire will set a 1 year or 3 year goal and say, how far can I get in 1 month or 3 months? Not that you're going to achieve the goal, but they shorten timelines and say, okay, who do I have to get in relationship with to make this happen faster? What do I have to buy, execute, leverage to make something happen faster? A millionaire typically looks at things and says, what can I do to move this forward? It's a different thought process. So listening to Gary, while sometimes he is not the guy that you're like, okay, I can, he's totally relatable. I can understand everything. I hear him and then yes, because he's way past our thought processes and he started from nothing. And if you were here during team meeting last week when he talked about, he literally had no money, was wildly in debt, and his wife was cheated on him with his boss. He had no furniture and was sleeping on the floor. Went to therapy, and what did the therapist say to him?
It's your fault.
It's your fault.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, whoa, that feels not no. Because he had this list of like, what happened that she did. The therapist said to him, seemed like a traditional guy. Did you ask her to marry you? Mm-hmm. Gary said, yes. He said, great, we need to work on you and how you make decisions. And that was a turning point in his life because he learned that life's outcomes are a series of decisions. And the better that you get at making decisions, the better outcomes you have. That's a huge shift in thinking. And quite frankly, that conversation benefited everybody that's sitting here, me very much included. So I want to play a couple of things, some highlights that I pulled up.
He's on the slideshow.
Let's dive into this. So we're going to first look at the numbers that drive real estate. There's this thing called.
I was going to try and recap all these slides and I was like, why would I do that? They already did it for me. Why would I try to articulate this better than Gary? Oh, wait, I'm not gonna. So hang with us.
The 4% trend line. It's not science. It is the expected appreciation rate of real estate over time. The very fact that things go up on a regular basis means that all the pieces that go into a house are going to cost more money, which means it's going to be more expensive. That's projected to be about 4%. So where are we today? Well, we're 9.9% above the trend line. Think of it this way, and that is if you had no appreciation for 2.5 years, you did the trend line. All right, so we look at total volume, and here we are, right? In 24, we did almost 2.2. I was going to say trillion. Thank you.
Yes.
Trillion, right? They're anticipating, and probably correct, that it's going to go up. Here's the problem, and that is there are fewer transactions done at higher volume. So the gimme business goes away. So those individuals who practice lead generation, they get their unfair share. And that leaves 60% of the real estate agents.
The give me business is gone.
Nothing falling in your lap.
No, 71% of agents did not sell a house last year. Do you know what that means? It does. It should. No, it should. You know why? You think that you're actually out there competing with a whole bunch of different agents and you're not. They've taken themselves out of the game. So the game that you get to play, your results 100% are dependent on how all in you're going to play right now. Because you're only quote unquote competing, and I say quote unquote competing because everybody bakes their sphere of influence, their lead generation pie differently. So you're only quote unquote competing with 29% of all licensed agents in a marketplace. That is less competition than you have had in probably 20 years. You have a finite amount of time between the market being at this end of the lull and start coming back. When the market starts going up, what do those agents do?
Jump back in.
Yes, they do. You want the market share that won't be taken away from you, you go to work now. That's it. Go to work.
In the market selling nothing. So then we look at inventory and here we go. It's a slow climb, but we need it to climb. Okay. And it is climbing, by the way. Right. Mortgage rates. I think they dropped to 6.9 today. 6%, anywhere in that 6 to 6.5%, you guys, that's where history usually lands. Just remember that.
This is why you're seeing some of the biggest agents in the country going out with the MOFR, which is buy today, and through my mortgage partner, you can refinance for free at any time that you want. So having an answer to the rate problem is important for everyone.
I love that. Yep. 74% of mortgages today have rates of 5% or less. Right. So 22% have less than 3, 34% have less than 4, between 3 and 4. 18%, 4 to 5, and then you have the 26% that are above 5. But that's growing.
Yes.
And here's the weird thing, and I know you ever thought about that, but that's every time we get together, that's going to grow. In other words, the people that have less than 5% will be shrinking, and every year we're going to add 4 million transactions. A percentage will be luxury, will be cash. We understand that. 40% of all luxury transactions are cash.
Write that down.
Well,
40% of all luxury transactions are cash. Why do you need to know that?
Those rates don't matter to them.
Oh, exactly. Know your audience, because if you are saying the wrong message, are you attracting the right buyer?
Right. But everything else is financed, and it's going to be financed at a higher rate. So every year we get together, that's going to be shrinking until you look up and it's now normalized again around that 5 to 6, 6.2, whatever those end up being.
The important thing to remember is that all this aside, people move because they have life events. They get a job, they lose a job, they find love, they get divorced, they have a kid, they become an empty nester. These are the reasons that people move, and it happens regardless of what the interest rate is or the inflation rate.
Yeah. So this is all the brain dead conversations that we have on a daily basis as we think about you and what you do, and what can we tell you that gives you an understanding. I will say this because I live in this world on your behalf. None of this actually is bothering me. Okay. And fundamentally, and I say that from a real estate perspective, because we're already at what we consider to be a modern floor for real estate sales, which from our perspective, all the economic things that can occur are going to cause different pushes and pulls, right? I push it here and it pops out there type of thing. But in the end, the net result most likely is increased transactions.
Yeah.
To be candid.
You preach the reality habit, Gary. And I think that when we sit down with this, instead of saying it's good or it's bad, it's like the old farmer's tale, where his horse runs off. Is it good luck or bad luck? We don't know. And I think that we have control over our year, and there's nothing that's going to happen on our individual market and goals level that's going to keep us from it.
Signs per agent, last year was 5.4, so it really didn't increase much. This year they expect it to bump up just a hair. Okay.
Only about 56,000 agents got out of the business. And I think we all thought it might be a little bit more with lower transactions.
Yeah, but 60% don't sell anything. So but they're counted in the average.
Right.
Oh.
So I just want to remind you again that that's not the real average of people that are out there door knocking. Because I think they should absolutely say, what's the average income that people that actually do lead gen, and what's the average income of realtors or numbers of transactions that people that don't?
Right.
That'd be an interesting data point.
You want me to tell you what ours was?
Yes.
I can tell you because I know y'all's businesses. It is the difference between making 20 to 40,000 a year and making well in excess of 300,000 a year. On average. If you're in the middle and you lead generate, but not consistently, you might ride a teeny bit of a real estate roller coaster. We're just not going to talk about that. You're looking at about 100 to 250,000 in GCI. And I say all the time that the people who make between 100 and about 250, and there's no judgment around this. Like, let me be super clear. Fair, I'm not talking to anyone. This is just what I have observed. So let me do this, and I'm not looking at anyone. Is that you are accidentally successful because you are good at connecting with people. If you would implement the systems that create success at the higher level, there's no ceiling. I still feel like people took that to their heart. I did a little bit. No, it's always Shauna. Don't worry. It's always Shauna. No, it took everything I had not to say hi, Shauna, when you came in. But I didn't want to be rude and interrupt Scott and Russ, so they saved you today. Hi, Shauna. Were you late today?
Yeah.
Of course.
She was on time for her.
Thank you.
No.
This is my new best friend.
I know. Well, Shauna just adopted you.
What's her name? What?
And did you see how fast, how nice she was to you, Shauna? You need to adopt her.
Actually involved.
Yeah. No, but I do that. I say that with the systems because there's no skipping that piece. There isn't. And you are only putting a lid on your own potential. Period. You want to unlock the lid?
Good work.
Systems. Go to work. You don't want to do the systems? You do what Johnny, Michelle, Seth, who else here use Shauna, Lever. Who else is here leverages Lever? Yeah, there's 4. Yes. Because they don't want to do that. They don't want to manage their back end, the database, contract flows, sending out the photographer, doing all the things. You have one of two choices. Nikki Miller says this is one of my favorite quotes. You pay for everything. Either you pay for it with your time or you pay for it with money. But you cannot achieve an outcome without paying to play and getting those systems set up. Period. End. So pick how you're going to pay and then go do it. Go to work.
Because I think you look up and go, oh, I should lead generate. Depending again on what you charge for your services, there is plenty of volume for whatever you charge to make a terrific income in the real estate industry this year. That's the bottom line. We close the slides and walk out.
That's the key here, because although the total number of average units looks low, these houses are worth a lot more money. You're getting paid more per.
Well, there it is. Volume per agent is the 4th highest. Essentially almost tied with the 3rd highest in recorded history, right? listings with price drops. So what you see, and what I think is interesting is go to January 23, you had 9%. Go to January 24, you had 24%. Go to January 25, you had 31. To me, that's a trend.
Mhm.
That's what's actually happening. January tends to be the floor for the entire year, fellas. So if 31% is now the floor, there's a great likelihood that that goes to 35 to 40.
Which is an opportunity for us. That tells me it's a skills market. If you've got the skills to have the conversations around price drops with your listings, you'll keep them and you'll sell them.
That's the.
When you say skills, you mean knowledge and skills.
Yes, knowledge and skills.
Method used to sell a home, 90% of the time, they used a real estate agent or
Look at that number. Go from 2006, how many people used an agent or broker to sell a house? Where are we at in 2024? Guys,
Media says the other way.
yeah,
Isn't that amazing how when the iVarden came out and everything, we all thought that they were gonna take everything from us?
No, we
It actually
didn't.
Went up. Well, I didn't think that, but you know, they were
Yeah,
saying that.
thank
in the
you.
media.
media is that, yeah.
They.
You stay out of
they-
that. She's got so much sass today. Today, I'm fair. No, but you're exactly right. This is in direct, the data is in direct conflict with what the media reports. No.
If you're looking at the media, you're in trouble.
Right. For anything. How does your database know this data? You better send it to them. Because if you're not louder, if they're not getting this from you, where else do they have to look? The media, that's it. There is nowhere else to look. This is so important. Why do you think more people are using an agent? Don't want to get sued? Guys, it is complicated. Have you all read a contract recently? Right? It's difficult for you. This is what you do for a living. I giggle when somebody goes, I'm going to do FSBO. Excellent. I am so excited for you. That is going to be amazing. I have my popcorn bucket. You call me when you're ready to, for me to connect you with one of my amazing humans that I work with. Haha. Yeah, go ahead. I got it. I mean, we've had friends do that. And I literally, that's what I said to them. And I think they called within 48 hours instead, please make this stop. And said blue ink, press hard, let's go. The reason that this is going up is because the landscape of real estate is more and more complicated. Would you go to court if you are being sued without an attorney? Well, there's no way that personally, unless some ridiculously out of this world event, that you're getting sued statistically for more than you're paying for a home. Why would you ever go buy your biggest asset without professional representation? It shows that the public is not. But you also have to remember that people look for social validation. This is social validation right here. Tell your people this.
broker. By the way, that is knocking on the door of the all-time high. For sale by owners, well, by the way, yes, yes. For that person that clapped. Yes. Because if you weren't doing a great job providing value, that wouldn't happen.
Yep.
But just remember, yes, validation for you as an industry is really strong. For sale by owners is that my guess is it's knocking on an all-time low.
All this information is just the data. How you think about it and the actions you choose to take is the key, because your thinking brings everything.
All right. So I have.
Let's dive into this. So we're gonna first
No,
look.
Gary, pause. I have time blocked for one of two more insights and the other one is homework, and you can pick real quick. There is Gary's 10 bold truths that he rewrote Bold with, and it's a continuation of what he spoke to us about last week. Or the CEO Summit highlights, which is some of the keynote speakers and famous authors that they interviewed. Which one would you like to hear today?
You should do that. CEO.
CEO.
CEO. Yeah.
All right, everybody who wants CEO, raise your hand. Everybody who wants 10 bold truths, raise your hand. Okay, that's your homework, is 10 bold truths.
Yes, ready? So I woke up as I typically do around 3 a.m, thinking about what we would talk about today. And to me, the big takeaway at 3 a.m. was simply that I choose whether a problem is short-term or long-term by how I address it.
Write that down. I am going to replay that.
Today. And
Yeah, they
to me,
stop,
the big
Mike Trout.
takeaway at 3 a.m. was simply that I choose whether a problem is short-term or long-term by how I address it. And I used to never think of it that way, that I'm the cause of that. Yeah, in control of that. So the second thing I was thinking about at 3:15 a.m. was comparison shopping. To me, it's one of our biggest challenges in life. And we're misled into a life of comparison shopping. So for me, and again, these are just little bitty thoughts at 3 a.m. For me, what keeps me on track is I'm real clear about what my life is about. And I just wrote it down here as an example. But for me, and you remind yourself daily, right? I want to have meaningful relationships. I want to have incredible experiences. I want to experience fantastic and interesting things. I want to help people live their best lives. And I want to deepen my soul. And as long as I stay grounded in that's what I'm about, comparison shopping doesn't appeal to me.
And I got to go into the world and met some of those resilient people on the planet. And when I saw their stories and talked to them, they would say so often, Robin, I don't feel very strong. I don't feel very gritty. Yet somehow they were able to persist. We're talking about how do you show up at work when you're worried about your family, or how you're worried about the current situation and all the division. Like, how do we keep showing up when life feels so overwhelming? And again, what we discovered when we met with those people and they shared their stories is they were able to do it because they all had 5 things in common, what they leaned into. We call this the theory of everyday resiliency because it's what we do each and every day that will set us up for success. So I'm just going to tell you a wee bit about each of them. The first one we came upon was the power of belonging. Power of belonging. You need a home team. The next one that we talk about here is the power of perspective. Being able to see the big picture and the little picture and know how to make what matters most matter most. The power of acceptance. It is recognizing that there's just going to be a few bad hours and how we can find a way to be in the discomfort and still choose to show up. It's going to make a really big difference. Now, the fourth thing that we learned about resiliency, and this was a really powerful lesson, and this is very much what I think the world needs a big dose of right now, which is the variable of hope. And then the final variable we saw about human performance had to do with this funny element known as humor. We learned people who swear live longer. Very hard for these people over here.
Don't you imagine if I've offered you and your family a trip to Disneyland or Disney World, and all you have to do is respond to a series of texts that I'm going to text you during the day about every hour, and rate your feelings on a 1 to 10 scale at that moment. And so if I ask you, what was your experience at Disney World? It's kind of hard to say because it's all over the place. 6, 5, and 10 with the Space Mountain, and 7 for lunch, and 3 for the kids acting out in the afternoon, 8 for the final exit. What is our experience at Disney? And what you could do is take an average, and that average would turn out to be something like 6.5. But what's interesting is our brain, that's not what our brain does. Our brain doesn't say 6.5. In fact, it says something more like a 9. What drives that? Well, most experience fades. And so if you take that chart and you take out the points in the middle, you're left with a couple of points. You got Space Mountain and you got the exit from the park at an 8. And that's what gives you an overall impression of a 9. So great experiences hinge on peaks and transitions. And there's the middle sword. And there's a 10 from Space Mountain and a 10 from the exit. And that looks like a 9. And so when we talk about experience, we're talking about moments. And so what I would challenge you today is to think about peak moments that should be celebrated and that aren't celebrated yet. And then to come up with a way of celebrating them. And so you can look for moments of insight, moments of pride. This is how family home is the biggest purchase most people ever make. And you're a part of that. And that's a luxury and that's a blessing. And so take peak moments that matter and turn them into things that you build.
You actually gave a TED Talk.
I did. Why do you like that? Thank you.
So they roll out this idea that if you're going to have 15 minutes in order to pitch an idea for all practical purposes,
Correct.
there's a model to follow.
Yes, systems and models.
Systems and models. And it's a 7-step model.
So they provided me with a 7-step model of how to write a TED Talk that people would want to hear.
Let's talk the world through this. Step 1, pull the audience in fast. What does that mean?
Sure, like some people might call that a hook, right? You have a funny story or a statistic like, Jason, did you know that companies with diverse teams, executive teams, have 36% more profitability than other teams? You know, something quick, grab them with a stat or something. Yeah.
Then it goes right into have a fun and exciting story. So I've grabbed them quick. Now I go into story hour.
Correct. So now you say something that's engaging and exciting. And in my case, it was the story about me and Elon Musk, which was funny at first. Until it wasn't, which is the next step, which is like, then you go back down.
That's it. The next step is have a crushing.
Yeah. So you're like, this is so fun. It's just funny, everybody. But then guess what happened? Yeah.
So, but this is really smart, right? Because they're systematically taking the audience along on a journey.
An emotional journey, yes.
So we pulled them in. We had an exciting story. This led to this crushing blow or defeat that has this negative outcome that causes an aha.
That causes me to say, you know what? I think they might see it differently than me. I think they should hear my idea.
Which then is show how the crushing defeat results and sparks this new idea. Now you're into unpacking the idea in detail.
Correct.
And this feels like the meat of the presentation.
Absolutely. This is where you say, here's my idea. Here's all the points of my idea. This is what I believe. And this is what I want to share with the world because I want you too to take action on my belief. Yeah.
They then move in to tell the audience what you hope to see and what you hope happens with your idea in the future. Why is that there?
So that's the call to action, or MOFA in your world, right? So that's the call to action. Okay, I'm not just here. TED Talks are not motivational speeches. TED Talks are actual ideas that you have that you share with the world in hopes that they will take action on what you shared. So there's a call to action here. Can I tell you what my call to action was?
Right, yeah, there's a call to action.
There's a call to action. And my call to action was for people to not just sit on the sidelines and see things, but to be somebody. And I used a little ending story about the somebody.
And then the killer closing.
Which was the story about the somebody. That's how I closed it out. And then I circled back to my Elon Musk story. Yeah.
This brings us to part 2, the 3P video method. So write this down, and we're actually going to plan a video together right now. So it's called the 3P video method. The first thing is we're gonna prepare. Step 2 is then you're going to press record. Just deliver the information. Be brief, be bright, be fun, and be done. It doesn't matter if you mess up or whatever. People are just curious. It's like you're talking to somebody at coffee, like you're answering that question for them. One take. And then lastly, you're going to share it immediately. Your clients.
Hold on.
Close.
If you're answering that question for them. One take. And then lastly, you're going to share it immediately.
Got it.
Got it?
Quick. They need to be clear, and they would love it if you're kind. Let's take a look at quick. One of the things that I have discovered in the last 3 years, I wrote an entire book about this called The Time to Win, is that fundamentally all of us care about our time more than ever. Today, according to the research that we conducted for the new book, 51% of clients will hire whomever contacts them first, regardless of price. More than half. I just bought a house in Mexico. Very excited. I get keys in 10 days. Got to get a property management company because my Spanish ain't that good. I contacted 3 property management companies. First property management company got back to me in 4 hours and said, Jay, I can't give you an exact estimate because we need to see the property, but here's what our typical services cost. Here's how it works. Can't wait to schedule a Zoom call. Second property management company got back to me in 2 days. Third property management company got back to me in 14 days, at which point I already hired the first one. They were not the least expensive. In fact, they were the most expensive. But I didn't care because we interpret speed as caring and we interpret responsiveness as respect. If more than half of everybody's going to hire whomever contacts them first, shouldn't we do what?
Rewind.
Yes.
And we interpret respect. Because we interpret speed as caring and we interpret responsiveness as respect. If more than half of everybody's going to hire whomever contacts them first, shouldn't we do whatever it takes to be first? I think we should.
A small story to validate what he just said. I went out to lunch with my daughter and my husband on Saturday. And they had this little thing on the table that it was scan the QR code to pay your bill and you didn't have to wait for the check. I was like, great. So I scan it. The amount was roughly in my head, probably what it should be. And then my cousin's like, oh, I'll Venmo you. I'm like, okay. And so he does. And I was like, oh, well, that wasn't enough to cover yours, but I don't care. Like, it didn't matter. But hey, by the way, he's like, no, it was. And I was like, no, they charged you for your Red Bull separately. He's like, no, they shouldn't have as part of the drink I ordered. So we pull it up and sure enough, I had paid for the table next to us. I guess they didn't like the little thing sitting on their table, so they had just added it to ours. So there's a few, and so I paid for the table next to us. And so I scan the QR code, the other QR code, and I look at the wine that's actually our bill. And it was a $10 difference. I had overpaid by $10, including tip, the whole 9 yards. And so I said to the guy, like the server comes over, I'm like, oh, excuse me, sir, I paid for the table. Here's what happened, blah, blah. He's like, oh, let me go get the manager. And I'm like, oh, no. Now it just turned into an event. And so by the time the guy gets back with the manager, I go, can you just give them our check? They're going to save $10. I will pay $10 to not have to deal with this right now. And he looks at me and he's like, it's fine. I can go back in the back. I can just refund you real quick. And I go, yeah. And then I'm just going to pay again. Right. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, $10. I will pay $10 to leave this establishment right now. And he's like, okay. I paid $10 extra to not stand there 7 more minutes. I didn't wanna. And that was worth my $10. But that's how clients view things too. What if you can skip the line at Disney and Universal by paying an extra fee? Oh, wait, they do that. They do that. But that's real because people don't want to spend their day waiting in the line. They will pay extra. So listen to that and respond accordingly. All right. In our last couple of minutes, here we go. Home appreciation forecast. This is what they talked about, but it's kind of here's the thing. Everybody except for Moody's and Morgan are saying homes are going to go up. That's what you need to get from this. Bottom line, nobody has a crystal ball. You may be buying at the top or at the bottom of the moment, but you're never buying at the top of the market because housing always goes up over time. The bottom line in real estate is never zero. Don't wait for the right time to buy real estate and give it time. Period. And people are like, well, but. No, you heard what Gary said. it will consistently cost more to build homes. Therefore, the price of homes will consistently go up. Period. That's it. It's logic. There are two things that Gary wrote that is very impactful. One is where motivation exists, opportunity begins. If you want a copy of this, you can scan the QR code. I'm going to read this to you. I hear the words opportunity and motivation used a lot these days. I love these words, so here are my thoughts. Opportunity exists all around us. Everywhere we look, there is an opportunity. From learning to experiencing, from losing to achieving. Every moment of every day brings almost limitless opportunities. None of us exist in a circumstance, a relationship, a career, or a business where opportunities don't exist. Opportunity isn't our challenge. Motivation is. It's the key to opportunity. Motivation is the drive to do something. No one can give us our drive. We can get inspired, we can get challenged, we can get threatened, we can get motivated. We just can't get our reason for doing something that truly matters from others. Motivation is deeply personal and comes from within us all. It comes from our values, from our beliefs and our passions. Most of all, it comes from our priorities. So when you find yourself saying, what's my opportunity? Just remember that it's everything and anything. It's all around you. Instead, I'd love for you to say, what do I actually want in the end? And what is my priority right now to get it? Opportunity lies on the other side, motivation and focus. The other one that is in there is Gary's 2024 ahas. I highlighted these, wrote notes on this. Please do the same. And then these QR codes pretty much all take you to the same place in my Google Drive. Never underestimate the small steps. If you were here last week, you saw this. It is so much easier to take small steps and move something forward than reaching for giant steps and not being able to grab it. So I gave you a 4-step event implementation process. The last 2 weeks, I hope you would argue, were an event. This week, hearing from Gary. You have homework. Last week, hearing from Gary. Remember, I said, please don't let your notes go onto a really smart bookcase. Please do something with them. Here is a system to do something with your notes. Did you guys catch that? It's a system. Yeah. You see? It's a system. It's a system for implementing those small steps. We will go over that next week. Jenna, come up.
Okay, so you all know that Keller Williams Realty Land Partners is doing really good. So